Hi, my name is Kenneth Ma and I'm the founder of Mott and Bayard Eyewear, an eyewear line designed for Asian and Asian Americans. Eyewear in the US was not designed for our faces in mind. They were designed for the Caucasian facial features, which are slightly different than Asian ones, mainly because they have an extra piece of bone, generally called a nose bridge, between their eyes and their nose to support eyewear on their faces. And the Asian American community were left out with unflattering or poorly fitting eyewear. Let me briefly go over why I think an Asian fit eyewear line is important. It is important because eyewear helps with one's confidence and makes one look and feel better. For a long time, our culture has been defined what was cool by what A-list celebrities wear on TV, movie, the red carpet, and the cover of GQ or Vogue. In the 1980s, Risky Business not only launched the career of Tom Cruise, but also the popularity of the Ray-Ban wafers, as a sunglass that defined what was cool for a generation. Ironically though, the Ray-Ban wafers is the most notoriously ill-fitting eyewear for Asians. It digs into the cheek with a pronounced tilt and barely has a nose pad for support, and in addition, it was made with a very heavy, chunky plastic. As the popularity of the wafers exploded, not only did many different eyewear brands follow this design, but it also subtly left out and excluded Asian Americans from being part of the cool crowd. Asians were stuck with less stylish, basic pairs of sunglasses because everybody wanted to follow how the wayfarers were designed. In addition, during the 2000s, Tom Ford entered the eyewear market, and what made his eyewear design and stand out was oversized plastic frames. This was also incredibly popular, but also designed in a way that fit terribly for Asians. We did not have the nose bridge, the piece of bone as I mentioned before, to support those big plastic frames. Popular American eyewear and sunwear designers unintentionally left out Asian Americans because of these two trends in the 1980s and also in the 2000s. This left out us being culturally excluded from being cool, stylish, and fashionable. Therefore, our eyewear selections was typically left with metal wire frames that were popular back in the 80s and 90s, and very narrow plastic frames that made our relatively small eyes look even smaller. This perpetuated the myth and stereotype that Asian and Asian Americans are nerdy, meek, shy, less confident, and always pushing their glasses up on their faces like that. It was very unattractive looking and very unconfident. Asian children hid behind their glasses, and like me, when I got my first pair of glasses, was embarrassed to wear them. I squinted most of the time, and that created other aesthetic problems. I was probably not the only person who experienced this issue. Glasses, on the contrary, can elevate someone's look, make them look stylish, on trend, smart, confident, and may I say, sexy. That is what I want to change with Mott and Bayard Eyewear. One may wonder how I got into eyewear and why I decided to start such a brand. For myself, I was literally born into the eyewear business. My family has owned Chinatown and Mott Street Optical based in Lower Manhattan for over 40 years. Probably older than most people here listening to this. The reason for opening their optical is they saw the Chinese American population in NYC in the 1970s and 80s were incredibly underserved by the eye care and eyewear professionals. Most of them did not speak our language. They had product selection that was a little bit too pricey for the working class Asian American population who lived in Chinatown. My dad opened Chinatown Optical first, and soon after Mott Street Optical on the corner of Mott and Bayard Street, which some might consider the center of Chinatown, Manhattan, hence the name Mott and Bayard Eyewear. We wanted to capture the essence of downtown New York City and Chinatown through an eyewear brand. I started with a family business in 2012 after spending 4 years in China. Living in China, I saw so many stylish eyewear that were both affordable and also luxurious. Coming back to the US though, the selection was rather poor for Asian Americans. Like many Asian parents, my mom always asked me why I wanted to come back to the family business. Why do I want to come back to Chinatown and run it? Her generation toiled for decades, 7 days a week, sometimes even holidays, so our generation can get a good corporate job and education and enjoy the weekends and holidays. For me and my sister, though, we wanted to continue my father's legacy and give back to the community that gave so much to us. I, in particular, focused on the eyewear selection and vendor management for the family business. While I curated frames from our store from all types of brands and eyewear designers, I started getting the idea for Mott and Bayard eyewear. From Ray-Ban to Armani to Gucci, Tom Ford, and Chanel, I looked at their styles and found them lacking in Asian fit frames, and I wondered why. The trend for eyewear, especially in the early 2000s and throughout the 2010s, were of big plastic frames, and the frames that the brands offered simply did not offer Asian fit. Led primarily by Tom Ford, as I mentioned before. The tilt of the frames dug in the cheeks, the material they used were heavy, and the nose pads were minimal or non-existent, leaving me to choose relatively older styles or the least flattering ones for the sake of comfort for my clientele. While doing the buying for these brands, I noticed only 1 or 2 out of the 10 styles from these designers were made for Asian fit. Their most stylish pieces were only for regular fit, which fits great for the general American Caucasian market facial features, but not so much for the Asian one. In 2015, I set out to create my own line so my customers did not have to choose between style or fit for their glasses. I traveled to numerous trade shows in 3 different countries, from Italy to Korea to China, to find a factory that can realize my vision. We tried a few factories. The first one made frames that were a little too chunky and too heavy. Another one we went through and thought it was the right one, but decided to make only eyewear accessories after a year of trying them. I went from the buzzing metropolis of Shanghai and Guangzhou to the really more laid-back cities of Dongguan that was 2 hours away, and watched how wood and cotton fibers were mixed together to make acetate sheets, and then how those acetate sheets were dried, treated, and transformed into a plastic pair of eyeglasses. All the heavy machinery along with the man labor was daunting, and after witnessing the steps it took to make one pair of glasses, I could never look at a pair of glasses as just a piece of plastic anymore. Finally, we found a factory who was on the cutting edge of making eyewear with acetate to make plastic frames. They just launched their high-density cellulose acetate, which is a stronger and lighter plastic-like material called HDAC. And soon, to my surprise, many other designer brands started using HDAC as well. On top of that, they were able to work with our order size, reduce the frame tilt, and elevate the nose pads. I decided to launch Mott and Bayard eyewear at my own 8 stores in 2016, and since then, it quickly became one of the best-selling lines in our stores. Asian clientele loved the look and feel of the frames, how light it fitted, and how it fitted on their face. I remember helping one customer who had a very high prescription, so his lenses were very thick. He was wearing a half-rim glasses with nose pads because that was the only frame that fitted him, even though half rims were not the most on-trend stylish frame at the time. He came in, of course he asked for Ray-Bans because he saw pop culture icons like the Jonas Brothers or Obama donating them, but we went through the entire Ray-Ban collection and nothing fitted him and his prescription. I finally showed him a few pairs of Mott and Bayard eyewears and his face lit up. He placed a pair on and shook his head around like this, and it didn't slide off. It looked great on him because the plastic frame hid how thick his lenses were. Now, every year he came back, he goes straight to the Mott and Bayard section, not even looking at the Ray-Ban one. And he finds a good fitting pair for him every time. Right now, in our 8 stores, we sell about 2,000 pairs a year, and walk down the New York City Chinatowns in New York, Brooklyn, or Queens, I see young, trendy Asian hipsters wearing it. They find it as a stylish product. When I see that, I feel that it's ready to be introduced to many more Asian communities in the US. My vision is Asian Americans would have easy access to Asian fit eyewear. We don't have to travel 13 hours all the way to Asia to get these frames, and we don't have to be limited to the limited designer brand styles. I want Mott and Bayard to be the premium direct-to-customer eyewear brand with retail stores in every Asian American community. A young person can shop Mott and Bayard eyewear online, and an older one can go to their local H Mart or Asian grocery store, and find a Mott and Bayard collection there. Mott and Bayard is my passion to change how a wider range of people see Asian American community and how we see ourselves. Eyewear that fits well and elevates our style helps us as individuals be more confident and assertive. Change starts with how we see ourselves, how we present ourselves, and that will change the way people see us. That's my vision for Mott and Bayard eyewear, that we are the change we want to see. Thank you for listening. I hope you join me in the Mott and Bayard journey.